Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. We are live at the Heineken Pub 97 at the Private Bank Fire Pitch. We'll be here each and every Wednesday, and now we have a chance to talk to one of the newest members of the Chicago Fire. He joins us here on the couch, Dax McCarty. Dax, it was an interesting season, off season for you. They say off seasons sometimes are a little bit shorter, but you got married, you got moved. You went to the U.S. men's national team. Lots of excitement. How you adjusting to everything?
Yeah, I fit about 5 years worth of events into about a month. So it was, wow, crazy. I'd say 2 months. It was amazing. My wedding was incredible. Something I'll never forget. And then obviously going into national team camp, getting traded, just having to navigate all those emotions and all those feelings. I mean, it was a whirlwind for sure. And I didn't say much in the beginning, but I wanted to make sure that I processed everything and let it all sink in before I came out and said my farewells, because I was in New York a long time. So really happy to be a part of the Chicago Fire family and looking forward to the season.
Dax, obviously you go to national camp, which means you came into preseason a bit late. Once you came in here, what was the process like to first get to know the team, but then to start that very important part of it, which is getting to know Juninho on the field and how that partnership is going to work between the two of you?
Yeah, I did an interview with Howler Magazine while we were down in Bradenton, and I got asked a similar question about how it feels to kind of integrate into a new team. And the thing that I believe, and the thing that always jumps out to me whenever any new player joins a new team is, I think the main goal for any player, whether he's young or old, is to go into the locker room and to go on the field and earn the respect of your teammates and coaches right away with how you play. Not with, how you talk to them, not with how popular you are in the locker room. Go on the field and show these guys that not only are you a good player, but you're going to come in and try to help the team win. So that was my mindset, try to come in and earn the respect of the guys on the field. Some of them have played against me, some of them have played with me. But anytime you come into a new environment, you want to make sure you're not stepping on anyone's toes, but you want to make sure you're all business and you're here to win. So I tried to do that. And then obviously getting to know Juninho a little bit. He's a fantastic player. He's someone I have a ton of respect for. We're very similar players. Both of us have played for some pretty successful teams in the past couple of years, but whenever I played against Juninho when he was on LA and I was on New York, it was a mutual respect. I didn't know him that well personally, but it was always a thing after the game where we'd shake hands and say, good battle. And I think he's going to be a tremendous asset for this team.
Dax, for me, first of all, just congratulations, because with the national, not only coming here, because I'm excited, and I'm sure all the Fire fans, but just that call up back to the national team, I think it was well earned and long overdue.
Thank you.
But talk a little bit with the preseason. I'm sure every time you go to a preseason, 6-8 weeks, it's a long process.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, and then also talk a little bit what should the Fire fans expect to see a little bit from a style of play.
Sure.
With the additions that the team has made.
This preseason felt a little longer for sure. I don't know why that is, but. Yeah, it was a good preseason, and it was a preseason that was a lot of hard work. I heard from a lot of the guys when I first got to camp that I missed probably 2 of the hardest weeks that any of them have ever been through. And so I think that shows you kind of the sense of urgency that the team feels and the coaching staff feels, but also the physical demands of MLS are a lot, and you have to be ready for a massive schedule of games, 34 games, Open Cup, all the other things that entail it. So it's been a good preseason. As for what they should expect, well, the first thing I'll say is, don't expect any miracles. Let's make sure that I think we look at the season, and the phrase that I use when I talk about our team is let's be cautiously optimistic, because I've seen some things in preseason that make me extremely optimistic about where this team can go, but I also see some things that we need to work on. So it's going to be a process. This is a very new team, a lot of new players, obviously, but it's one of those things where you see the pieces they've added, and it feels like this team can do something a little special and definitely be more successful than we were the last 2 years. That's certainly unacceptable. I'm a guy that hates losing, and I'll make sure that I'm a pain in the ass. Can I say ass? Sorry. I'll make sure I'm a pain in the ass if we're not getting good results. But as for a style of play, I think we want to be a team that's good at everything. I think we have obviously tremendous speed and fantastic attacking players. So I think in transition we're going to be a very good team. But defensively we need to be able to protect our defenders as well. So me and Juninho, our job is going to be to protect the back line, make sure that we're not getting exposed defensively. So we're going to be a team that's better in possession, and we're also going to be a team that can still hit you on the counterattack. So I think we're going to be very dangerous.
Well, that's one thing we saw from you in New York, and we've seen the role of certain number 6s in this league change, where you're playing a little bit deeper, you're dropping in between those center backs at time to get the ball and start the attack.
Yep.
Do you see yourself staying in that role, or do you find yourself a little bit more interchangeable because you and Juninho are similar players, where you just have to feel the game of when you go and when you stay?
Absolutely. And, you know, we've had good conversations with myself and Juninho, with Coach Paunovic, and I think he wants it to be a free-flowing thing. He doesn't want to set a limit on, you know, where I want to go tactically or where Juninho goes tactically. I think Juninho and I have a good understanding on the field. I think more often than not, it's going to be me that's going to be a little bit deeper than Juninho. I mean, I think you guys saw in the game against Toronto, he's got a cannon on him. So we want him pushing forward.
You had a pretty good volley yourself earlier in the
Look,
preseason.
man, that happens like once every 5 years, so don't expect that much. But Juninho, he's got that in his arsenal, and he's another very dangerous guy in the attack. So I think what you'll see is you'll see me drop a little bit deeper at times, but Juninho is very good at starting the attack as well. That was kind of his job with LA. So I think both of us will be very interchangeable. I think the main thing is just we want to be that solid foundation in the middle of the field. If you can win the middle of the midfield in most MLS games, you're going to be a successful team.
You'll be able to see Dax and the rest of the Chicago Fire this Saturday when they take on Columbus Crew SC, the Chicago Fire in Columbus. A nice little rivalry. We'll talk about that and much, much more. We come back. You can catch the game 12:30 pregame, 1 o'clock, the kick on CSN Chicago. And don't forget, Chicago Fire home opener coming up on the 11th against RSL. You can get your tickets at chicago-fire.com. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. We are out at the Heineken Pub 97 at the Private Bank Fire Pitch. We'll be here each and every Wednesday. We have a chance today to be talking with one of the newest members of the Chicago Fire, Dax McCarty. And before they get into the X's and O's and everything else, New York pizza, Chicago pizza. Have you had Chicago pizza? And if so, your opinion. And we won't hold it against you.
I haven't had the pleasure of having Chicago pizza yet. I've only been here for like 4 days total.
Okay.
And even on road trips, it's kind of funny. We had on New York, we had a couple English guys that are obsessed with Nando's, which is a chicken place from England. So we wouldn't go get pizza after the game. We go to Nando's. So I haven't had Chicago pizza yet, but it's got a lot to live up to. New York pizza is pretty good. Keeping an open mind, though.
Okay, that's good.
The one thing with Paul, he said that he's got an unbelievable shot. The one thing I remember from him is the goals that he's been able to score off set pieces. You know, and when you look at him, you're saying this guy, you know, he's not the tallest guy, but it just seems to be in the right spot. He reads the game. And when we played against them, when I played, I know there was one guy we used to circle. You got to keep an eye on Dax because he always finds a way to score set pieces.
They give him no respect, man. He scores his headers, so many headers.
They're marking me with guys my size, and I love that. I'm licking my chops at that. You got to mark me with like Kai Kamara.
I made sure we marked them with big guys, but somehow he got free and scored.
It's not the other way around. As long as you're not marking Kai on the other side of the field.
Yeah. No, but the one thing I wanted to get back to from a tactical standpoint, I know that the team gave up 58 goals last year.
Yeah.
And I think with the players that they've been able to bring in and their ability now to keep the ball a little bit more, they put 10, 15 passes together, which if you're able to do that, I think you're able to move your lines, be a little bit more compact, and then in transition, you can press a little bit better. How much is that going to help having players, yourself and Juninho, on the field?
It's going to help a lot. And when you are able to do that as a team, it takes a little bit of pressure off your defense. Your defense doesn't have to constantly be involved in these transition moments where the game's going back and forth and getting stretched. You can stay more compact. Like you said, I mean, a big term in world soccer nowadays is counter press. And I think that's something that all good teams, they need to do well. And that means when you lose the ball high up the field, you go and try to win it back immediately. And I think that's something that, with me and Juninho in there, I think guys, especially the attacking players, will have more freedom to try things in the attacking half. If they don't come off, go try to win the ball back right away. And if a team gets out, one pass, two passes, you know that you have that solid foundation of two defensive midfielders that are there to protect the back line. Because obviously a back line, you know, it can bend, but then when it breaks, it's just kind of demoralizing for the team. And so you need those two solid building blocks in the middle of the field to take the pressure off the defense.
Well, first of all, I think I'd get in trouble if I don't mention the Winter Park MLS Coffee Club. Dax McCarty's a part of it. Now that you're in Chicago, we'll have a Chicago faction of it. I imagine the real estate situation's a little bit better, a bigger apartment here than in New York?
Unbelievable. It's my wife and I, after national team camp, I came here and we were apartment searching, and the second place we saw, it was beautiful, you know, crown molding, hardwood floors, twice as big as my Manhattan apartment, and $1,200 cheaper. And it was just one of those situations where my wife and I looked at each other and just like, all right, we can get used to this.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're looking at we haven't talked a lot about the back line, but that's a big part of it for you as well. How are you seeing that chemistry grow, especially with the center backs and Joao and Kappelhoff behind you, but then also a guy who I think still needs to be mentored a bit, and Brandon Vincent, and you went to college with Michael Harrington.
Sure, the back line for me is crucial if we're going to be successful this year. And I think in preseason we've seen some really good things out of them. The one thing with the back line in general that I'll say is it's not the most vocal group of guys. And so the one thing I try to constantly stay on top of all of them. Michael Harrington, he's a veteran guy. He's playing at right back, and he's really vocal, probably the most vocal of all of them. And that's good, but you need a center back who's willing to step up and say, all right, this is my defense. Everyone's going to take the cues on me. And I think both Joao and Johan are both very good players, and they're capable of doing that, as well as Jonathan Campbell, who I've been really impressed with, who's another great piece that we're going to have. But those two guys, those three guys, the basis of your foundation of how good your defense is going to be has to come from leadership. And so communication with those guys is essential. Brandon Vincent has all the talent in the world, but he's quiet as a mouse. I try to tell him he needs to open his mouth more. I don't care how young you are. If you're going to be successful as a defense, two things. You obviously can't concede goals, but you also have to be able to cover each other. And there are going to be breakdowns at times during games, but if we have our defenders in good positions covering each other, we're going to save a lot of goals.
You know, you look at it, and you mentioned leadership there. And when the Chicago Fire get a guy like you and bring you in, is there any pressure to be a leader? How does that work? Is it just what you do on the field, or is it talking to all the players, and do they just earning the respect?
Absolutely. I mean, like I told you before, I want to come in and earn the respect of the guys in the locker room and my coaching staff by what I do on the field, and not really, my voice. I know the type of guy I am, and I know the type of player that I've evolved into, and I just naturally take on more of a leadership role because I like to have my voice heard. I have strong opinions about, things if the team is doing well, if the team's not doing well. So I think that just comes naturally for me, but I try to always, have an even keel. If things go great and the team's doing really well, I try to look at what we can do better because you don't ever really want to get too comfortable and content. When things aren't going so well, you don't want to say the world is ending, the sky isn't falling. These are just things that you need to correct and get better. So I think the team did a good job of bringing in some experienced guys like myself and Juninho and Nikolic, guys like Arturo Alvarez and Delu. There are some really good veteran guys on this team and some good experience. And so it's not going to just be me. It's not going to just be Juninho. It's going to be a whole cast of guys that have to be leaders on the field if we're going to be successful.
Dax McCarty, one of the newest members of the Chicago Fire. You'll be able to see him and the rest of the team this coming Saturday. They open the MLS season in Columbus. There'll be a lot of Fire fans. They take buses up there to Columbus. It should be a fun time. And it is a 1 o'clock kick, 12:30 pregame. Dex, best of luck this season. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Take a sip of the beer.
We will.
You
figure the later segments will definitely will. Paul can start now. We are at the Heineken Pub 97. It's the Chicago Fire Weekly Show right here, brought to you by the Private Bank.